Welcome to G Fun Facts Online. Let's start with a simple exercise. Take a deep breath. Now another. What if I told you that for every 5 breaths you take, at least one comes from a single type of bacteria you can't even see? And what if I told you the place it lives is not the lush, green rainforest we've all been taught to call the lungs of the world? For decades, the image of the Amazon rainforest has been seared into our minds as the great life-giver of our planet. It's a powerful metaphor, but it's also scientifically inaccurate. And this misconception has created a dangerous blind spot, causing us to ignore the planet's true, life-giving lungs, the ocean. Today, we're diving deep into the unseen breath, exploring how the world's true lungs are suffocating in silence. The moniker lungs of the earth is incredibly potent. During the devastating Amazon fires of 2019, the phrase was everywhere, driving home the urgency of the situation. The logic seems simple. Forests have trees. Trees do photosynthesis. The biggest forest must make the most oxygen. The claim that the Amazon produces 20% of the world's oxygen has been particularly persistent. But where did this idea come from? It seems to have been popularized in the 70s and 80s, providing a simple and compelling reason to care about deforestation. The 20% figure likely arose from a misinterpretation of data. The Amazon is indeed responsible for a huge amount of photosynthesis, maybe 20% of the total on land. But this calculation misses 2 critical things. First, it ignores the oceans. And second, it ignores the fact that mature forests like the Amazon are in a state of equilibrium. Over its millions of years of existence, the Amazon has reached a point where the oxygen it produces is almost entirely consumed by the respiration of its own ecosystem. The trees themselves breathe, as do the trillions of animals, fungi, and microbes that decompose dead organic matter on the forest floor. When you add it all up, the net contribution of the Amazon to the global oxygen supply is close to zero. This does not diminish the Amazon's profound importance. It is an irreplaceable cradle of biodiversity and, crucially, a vital carbon sink, locking away immense stores of carbon in its trees and soil. Protecting it is absolutely critical in the fight against climate change. But it is not the planetary oxygen factory it's been made out to be. So if not the Amazon, then what? The answer lies in the deep blue. In stark contrast to the forest, the oceans are a net producer of oxygen on a massive scale. Marine organisms, from microscopic algae to sprawling seaweed forests, are responsible for an estimated 50 to 80% of all oxygen production on Earth. This is thanks largely to something called the biological carbon pump. Tiny photosynthetic organisms called phytoplankton float in the sunlit upper layers of the ocean. When they die, a portion of them sinks into the deep sea, taking their stored carbon with them. This process effectively removes that carbon from the surface atmosphere system, leaving behind a surplus of oxygen. Over geological time, this is the very process that created the oxygen-rich atmosphere we depend on. The sheer scale of this is mind-boggling. Remember that bacteria I mentioned at the start? It's a type of phytoplankton called Prochlorococcus. It is the most abundant photosynthetic organism on the planet, and it alone is responsible for about 1 in every 5 breaths you take. The persistence of the Amazon myth is a testament to the power of a good story. A burning forest is visceral and immediate. It's easy to understand. It's much harder to visualize these slow, insidious, and largely invisible threats to our oceans. This isn't just an academic argument. This misconception has had real-world consequences, creating a hierarchy where the visible and emotionally resonant issue of deforestation has overshadowed the equally, if not more, critical threats to our marine ecosystems. While the Amazon faces the clear and present danger of the chainsaw and the torch, the ocean's life-giving ecosystems are facing a multi-pronged assault. Let's look at the main culprits. First, there's ocean acidification, often called the other CO2 problem. The same carbon dioxide that warms our planet also dissolves into our oceans, making the water more acidic. Since the Industrial Revolution, the oceans have absorbed about a third of all the CO2 we've pumped out, leading to a 30% increase in acidity. This is like osteoporosis for the sea. It has profound implications for organisms with calcium carbonate shells or skeletons, like corals, shellfish, and, crucially, some of our most important oxygen producers. Coccolithophores, for instance, are a type of phytoplankton that builds protective plates around themselves. Increasing acidity makes it harder for them to build these plates, which can slow their growth and disrupt their role in the carbon cycle. A study from Princeton and Xiamen University found that ocean acidification could reduce primary production in tropical oceans by around 10%, which would have significant global consequences. The second major threat is deoxygenation. In a cruel twist of irony, the warming planet is causing the ocean to literally lose its breath. Just like a warm soda holds less fizz, warmer ocean water holds less dissolved oxygen. Warmer surface waters also create a sort of lid, preventing oxygen from mixing into the deeper layers. The result is a global decline in oceanic oxygen levels. This isn't a future problem, it's happening now. The volume of ocean areas completely devoid of oxygen, known as anoxic waters, has quadrupled since the 1960s. The number of coastal sites with dangerously low oxygen, called dead zones, has increased tenfold. These dead zones, often worsened by nutrient runoff from agriculture, lead to mass fish kills and collapse local ecosystems. Third, we have plastic pollution. The 11 million metric tons of plastic entering our oceans each year aren't just an eyesore. As they break down into a toxic smog of microplastics, they directly threaten photosynthesis. These tiny particles can physically block sunlight, coat algae, and leach toxic chemicals. One study on the crucial bacterium Prochlorococcus found that chemicals leaching from common plastic products could impair its growth and photosynthetic ability. When you remember this tiny organism produces 20% of our oxygen, the implications are staggering. Finally, overfishing upsets the delicate balance. Removing fish on an industrial scale disrupts the entire food web. For example, removing large predatory fish can lead to a boom in smaller fish that eat zooplankton. With fewer zooplankton to graze on phytoplankton, you can get harmful algal blooms, which then die, decompose, and create more dead zones. These threats don't act in isolation. They are a synergistic assault on the ocean's ability to function as our planet's primary life support system. This vast disparity in ecological significance is mirrored by a chasm in policy, funding, and media attention. The Amazon, with its powerful narrative, has captured the world's attention and conservation dollars. The ocean has been left in its shadow. Look at the policy landscape. For the Amazon, we have international frameworks like the UN's REDD+ program, which stands for Reducing Emissions from Deforestation and Forest Degradation. We have the Amazon Cooperation Treaty Organization. Brazil, at its peak, had a hugely successful national plan that combined satellite monitoring and law enforcement to cut deforestation by over 80%. While these efforts ebb and flow with political changes, the policy infrastructure is well established. In contrast, policies to protect the ocean's oxygen-producing ecosystems are fragmented and indirect. The UN Convention on the Law of the Sea provides a general framework, but lacks specific, enforceable measures. The Convention on Biological Diversity has a target to protect 30% of the world's oceans by 2030, but creating marine protected areas is a slow, politically charged process. We have agreements to tackle oil spills or plastic, but there is no single, holistic strategy for protecting the ocean's respiratory function. This policy gap is reflected in the money. The Amazon Fund, primarily backed by Norway and Germany, has channeled over $1 billion into anti-deforestation efforts. The Bezos Earth Fund has also committed vast sums. Ocean conservation, by contrast, is one of the most neglected of the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. There is no high-profile fund for protecting marine photosynthesis comparable to the Amazon Fund. This financial disparity is a clear indicator of our global priorities, and it's driven by the media narrative. The 2019 Amazon fires generated a torrent of news articles and social media outrage. The images were powerful. There is no equivalent narrative for the silent crisis in our oceans. Ocean acidification doesn't produce dramatic visuals. The expansion of dead zones happens out of sight. The impact of microplastics on phytoplankton is invisible. As one expert lamented, it's an out-of-sight, out-of-mind problem. And this has a very real human cost. The degradation of our oceanic lung is not just an environmental issue, it's a socio-economic crisis. The most immediate impact is the collapse of fisheries. Dead zones are lost fishing grounds, lost sources of income, and lost sources of food. For the millions of people in developing countries who depend on small-scale fisheries for protein and their livelihood, this is a humanitarian catastrophe. Poor fisheries management, worsened by environmental decay, is estimated to squander $80 billion a year in lost economic potential. Then there are the harmful algal blooms, fueled by the same pollution that creates dead zones. These blooms can produce toxins that shut down fisheries and threaten human health. They devastate coastal tourism with beach closures and foul odors. A single prolonged red tide event in Florida from 2017 to 2018 cost local businesses over $8 million. And on a global scale, as phytoplankton decline, the ocean's ability to act as a carbon sink weakens. This leaves more CO2 in the atmosphere, accelerating climate change and all the enormous economic costs that come with it. The chain of causality is clear. A microscopic alga struggling in an acidic sea is directly connected to a coastal community losing its primary source of income. So, what do we do? The story of the forgotten lung is also a story of immense opportunity. By recognizing the true source of our planet's breath, we can rebalance our environmental priorities. First, we have to elevate the ocean in public consciousness. We must actively challenge the old myth and replace it with a more accurate understanding of our planet's respiratory system. Environmental education needs to be updated. Media organizations need to tell the complex, invisible stories of our oceans. This shift in narrative must drive a shift in policy. We need to move towards an integrated framework with one clear goal: protect the ocean's ability to produce oxygen. This will mean tackling root causes, from fossil fuels to unsustainable agriculture. In this effort, we can learn from the decades-long struggle to save the Amazon. The successes, like Brazil's satellite monitoring program, show the power of combining technology with strong enforcement. This model could be adapted to monitor illegal fishing, algal blooms, and plastic pollution in the ocean. The failures in the Amazon are also a cautionary tale, showing how vulnerable conservation is to political change. This highlights the need for long-term, politically durable policies and funding. Ultimately, saving our forgotten lung requires a new story. We need to make the invisible visible, to make the slow, creeping crisis in our oceans as emotionally compelling as a burning rainforest. Perhaps we should think of the ocean not as our lungs, but as our heart, the beating blue center of our world that drives the currents of life. For too long, we have taken our planet's breath for granted, but the silent suffering of our forgotten lung is a stark reminder that the air we breathe is not a given. It is time to listen to the ocean's labored breath and to act with the urgency and commitment that this crisis demands. The fate of our blue planet and our own depends on it.